Today, we're diving straight into a really fascinating medical mystery. You know that feeling when you're walking across a perfectly flat, well-paved parking lot and bam, you catch your toe out of nowhere. Most of us just completely brush this off as a normal, slightly annoying sign of aging. But today, we're unpacking some massive revelations from Dr. Waterling's research that show this isn't just about getting older at all. It's actually a critical warning sign from your own body.
So let's challenge the very first thing that pops into our heads when this happens. What do you immediately think? Probably, man, my legs are getting weak, right? It's totally natural to blame the exact body part that physically failed to clear the pavement. So what do? We start doing squats, or maybe we go for more walks, hoping to build that leg strength back up. But what if we're looking at the completely wrong end of the body? Because here is the massive twist. We've got to completely flip our perspective on this. Think of your legs as just the hardware. They're just the gears and levers. Your brain, that is the software controlling every single micro movement of that hardware. Dr. Waterling's insights show us that your leg muscles aren't necessarily vanishing or failing on their own. Instead, the software controlling them might actually be starving. Let's look at the numbers to see exactly how this happens.
To wrap our heads around why that software might be starving, check out this absolutely wild baseline metric. Your brain makes up a measly 2% of your total body weight. It is so tiny compared to the rest of your physical mass. Yet, despite being so small, it is without a doubt the most demanding organ you possess.
But here is where the math gets crazy. That tiny 2% organ demands a whopping 20% of the oxygen from every single breath you take. Seriously, let that sink in for a second. 1/5 of all the oxygen you pull into your lungs is immediately earmarked just for your brain. It runs insanely hot. And when that oxygen supply gets even slightly interrupted, the systems that rely on those super fast, precise calculations, they're the very first things to glitch out.
And the specific area taking the biggest hit, your cerebellum. This is your body's ultimate command center for physical balance. It's basically a supercomputer sitting right at the back of your brain, and its only job is calculating the position of your body in space, timing every single muscle contraction down to the millisecond. It requires a massive, non-stop flow of oxygen to process all that data in real time.
Dr. Waterling hits the nail on the head here with this quote: "Walking is literally just controlled falling." Think about it. When you walk, you're constantly throwing your center of gravity forward, totally off balance, and just blindly trusting your foot to catch you at the exact right fraction of a second. If your cerebellum's timing's off by just a few milliseconds because it's running on low power, your foot doesn't deploy in time, and that is exactly when you stumble on a flat surface. So the key takeaway is that when your cerebellum doesn't get its full oxygen supply, your timing falters way before your leg muscles actually lose strength. You start to subtly drift as you walk. You lose that crisp, confident stride. Your legs are plenty strong to hold you up, but the signal telling them exactly when to fire, it's just showing up late to the party. It is entirely a supply chain issue to your brain's balance center. And you know, this usually doesn't happen in a vacuum. A stumbling foot is often just one red flag in a whole series of symptoms of a starving brain. If you're also noticing weird memory blips, waking up with heavy mental fatigue, or just fighting through thick brain fog every single day, these aren't just random, separate signs of aging. They are all warning signs waving from the exact same underlying crisis. Your brain is gasping for air.
Which brings us to the real hidden culprit of this whole medical detective story. If the brain desperately needs that 20% oxygen, and we know a lack of it causes us to stumble, we have to track down where the blood flow is actually getting blocked. Because your lungs are pulling in the oxygen just fine, and your heart is pumping it out just fine. The problem is right in the middle of the transit route.
To find the roadblock, we've got to look closely at your vertebral arteries. These are the absolute vital highways delivering that precious 20% oxygen straight up into your skull and right to your balance center. But here's the catch. Unlike other blood vessels in your body that are nicely cushioned by soft tissue, these specific arteries have to physically thread their way up through the bony loops of your neck vertebrae. It's a really tight, incredibly vulnerable pathway.
And the exact point of failure? It's usually right at the cervicothoracic junction, basically right where your neck meets your upper back. Decades of slouching at desks, craning our necks to look down at our phones, it creates this chronic tension that acts like a literal chokehold on those arteries. You don't even feel it happening, but it's like putting a subtle, persistent kink in a garden hose, slowing down the oxygen to your cerebellum day by day.
Dr. Waterling uses patients like Carol to perfectly illustrate how this hidden restriction silently sabotages us. Carol didn't have some rare muscle-wasting disease in her legs. She just had this mechanical chokehold in her neck. Her cerebellum was literally suffocating, which wrecked her confidence and balance. But the absolute best news here, because it's a mechanical restriction, we can fix it mechanically.
Section 1. The Gem-Free Protocol, Reversing the Wobble.
Because this is an oxygen and software issue up in your neck, hitting the leg press at the gym isn't going to do a thing. We actually need to remove the restriction to flood the brain with oxygen again. First up, we physically unwind that cervicothoracic junction at the base of the neck. Next, we use finger-assisted neck rotations to get those vertebrae moving freely again. And finally, a solid stretch to the sternocleidomastoid, those thick muscles at the front of your neck. Boom! The kink in the hose is gone, and life-giving oxygen rushes back to the cerebellum.
Section 2. Rewiring the software, training the cerebellum.
Now, once we've got that blood flowing again, we can't just call it a day. Your cerebellum has been running on low power mode for years, so you have to actively challenge it to rebuild those neural pathways. We kick things off with pelvic rotations to quickly recalibrate your center of gravity. Then we move into spotting turns, where you lock your eyes on a target while turning your body, which forces the brain and inner ear to perfectly sync up. And for the adventurous out there, Sufi spinning throws a massive wave of fresh balance data at your newly oxygenated brain to process.
And the payoff for all this goes way beyond just fixing your stride. Putting in just a few minutes a day doesn't just eliminate the wobble, it dramatically levels up your overall cognitive health. You're literally restoring that 20% oxygen supply, which means your short-term memory sharpens up and that heavy lingering brain fog finally starts to lift. You are quite literally bringing your brain's hardware back online. So the big takeaway here is that you absolutely do not need a gym to get your balance back. By tackling the actual root cause, that mechanical chokehold in the neck, you can completely reverse years of hidden oxygen deficit. You don't need heavy weights, and you certainly don't have to just accept stumbling as an inevitable part of getting older. You just have to unkink the hose and gently train your system back to its prime. I want to leave you with this thought as we wrap up this explainer. Now that you know the true source of your balance and exactly how to flood your brain's internal computer with the oxygen it's been craving, what are you going to conquer next with that newly restored confidence? Thanks so much for joining me today.